Okay, so yeah, I was just saying I'm on. Ugh. Oh, still going good. Oh, it's so hard to do this. Too many buttons. Not enough patience, but it's amazing how this story of stories motivates me. Okay. It's amazing how this story of stories motivates me to do what I wouldn't otherwise do, but it's also this energy. Ooh. It's also this energy that I get from the story. I know, I'm smoking, it's awful. That ain't the awfulest thing though. If you've been following along, which I doubt, yet if you're here you have been, probably. So I've been talking about a lot about Wizard of Oz, Harriet Tubman, Wild Carrot, Raphael from the Renaissance. These are things I've been focusing on lately. Let's see, where's the frame? Where's the frame? These are things I've been focusing on lately. And one of the things that I've been curious about, because I've been associating, because there's what I call the Harriet Tubman, where you have the red hat or the red scarf with the blue dress. That's what I call the Harriet Tubman, when you have the red and mostly light blue. This is a darker blue, but when you have the red on top with the blue. Not quite like the red, white, and blue of America, not of the American flag, not quite like the red, white, and blue or the red and blue and white of the Korean flag. But I've been struggling with how the wild, or the red, the ruby red slippers, Dorothy's blue dress, right? But if you, and this is where you need to be adult, and this has to do with like old Indian temples, where like there's some old school, and maybe they weren't Indian, but I think they were old Indian temples where like you had all these statues and like carvings and so on in relief, and as you got to the top it got more and more information built into the music, built into the poetry, and they built their mathematics into their music and their poetry, like the West did, but in a, I dare say, a more sophisticated way. More nuance, more exactness, more geometry, more astrology. The Indians got there first, or those who were in India then and moved on later. But and I got this from the dude on the internet, and I'm sorry I forget his name. I'm terrible with names that I'm not familiar with. But there's this dude who does really great videos of like old Indian architecture. And, like every video is a revelation. He's a rather stocky fellow, very handsome, and very smart and very friendly. But and I assume very tough if he needs to be. But there's a certain level, because it's what he said was that like children back then would be taught the stories and the poetry and so on and the math and so on as you go up. You know, the children start at the base level, and as you grow older you go up levels. So these structures in India, I think there are certain ones in like the Malaysia also that look like this from my recollection, like Georgetown. Like there are temples in that area, so not just India, but like in that Malaysian, which is the most beautiful island complex, like that whole area, like Malay, like from reaching up, like between Australia and like Africa and Eurasia, like that whole island area is like such a, you know, because we always talk about like the Mediterranean and how like complex and diverse, and like, you know, Greece and Northern Africa and all that kind of stuff. But that whole Malaysian area is like, what an incredibly diverse, you know, because you got the Papua New Guinea. I know they're not necessarily Malaysian, but just maybe that's the limit. And like stretching up through that whole area is just like, it blows the Mediterranean, forgive the pun, out of the water, you know. But anyway, there are similar temples there. But anyway, at a certain level you get to very sexual, what's it called, kundalini carvings in the temple. And the idea is that you don't get to the higher truths if you get stuck on the sex. Now, I'm familiar with this, trust me. Where am I going with this? Where am I going with this? Maybe I'll couch it and come back to it, because I can't remember where I started. But I remember the intent of my video. Yeah, I couldn't remember, or I couldn't, oh, right. Dorothy, right? So, this is one of those instances, even though one of the worst things, see, this is the weird thing, and it's a weird thing about symbolism, and it's a weird thing about like growing up and becoming an actual adult, and I'm not. I'm a child. And that's an insult to children. I'm so immature, so fragile, and so stupid, that to call myself a child at 43 is an immense insult to the intelligence and the innocence of children. Yet, I still possess that innocence and intelligence within me. As do you. But if you, and this is one of those instances where I'm asking you to transcend beyond the vulgar into the vulgate, so to speak. They always call it the Latin vulgate, which sounds like vulgar, which makes you think like, why do I wanna? But that's just it. If we emotionally embrace the vulgar, it's vulgar. But if we understand it intellectually and spiritually as the vulgate, it's a gate. When we understand it, we can pass through it. So anyway, if you flip Dorothy over, upside down, you get, you know, because she's got her blue dress, but more or less a slip beneath, white, with the red shoes. So you get the red shoes with the white, with a blue outline, if you were looking at her upside down. That's a symbol. So that has to do with the wild carrot. Some wild carrots do have a blue rimmed outline. And that's as far as I was able to marry the the strictly red and blue with the red, blue, and white with the red and white. You'll have to look at my old shit, my old stuff for that. But it was only today, and it's been creeping, like I have been making these connections, and how that all ties into Raphael, how that all ties into the Underground Railroad, how that ties into the Age of Aquarius, and I've got it. And once again, if you had the patience to watch however many hours, 40 hours of my videos, you would get it. So, this is my commitment to you. If you had the wherewithal, you know, because I might die now, I might die tomorrow, but if you had the wherewithal, I want to make it succinct, like somewhere between like a 2 hour and like somewhere between 2 and 8 hours. I want to make something that's somewhere between 2 and 8 hours that is just like a lockdown. Essentially a magical spell. Like if you can lock someone in to the truth, sometimes a better lie is the truth. So, I'm not saying I know the truth, but I know the truth of a certain brand of symbolism that reaches back thousands of years continuously, that is a multi-thousand year agenda, and I can't figure out, and actually, you know, it's not like I see everything that's being made on the internet, so maybe there's hundreds or thousands of us who are figuring out this specific. There's a lot of us, I mean, there's millions of us who are figuring out a lot of things, but this specific code through time that I have figured out, and I don't mean it as I have figured out, but that has focused upon me. You know, I feel like it's been forced upon me. I don't feel like I've figured it out. I'm very stupid, and I make a lot of mistakes. But the things I get right are so solid. And this one's solid. Just trying to figure out how to express it. But I bow my head and I ask why. And, you know, why me? Why am I figuring this out? And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But I have to. So, like, the why, like, why ask why? Try but dry. Like, the why me is less important than I gotta do this. So the why me can wait. Sometimes, other times it's good to think about it. But yeah, basically what today is important, and it's floated in my mind, and I put these things back and forth. But kind of now I get it, you know. And there'll be more to come, and there's more in the past, and if you just watched this video and haven't seen my other things, if I never get to my somewhere between 2 and 8 hour presentation, then none of this will matter to you if you have a short attention span, which I can sympathize with because I have a short attention span. But considering this story, and I'm telling you, I'm like little Mikey in fucking Goonies right now. With this particular code. Not of everything, not of all the truth, not of all the world. But I'm like little Mikey in fucking Goonies right now. I'm fucking unlocking this shit. So I do promise you that, I mean, if you watched all my shit, I feel bad for you. I apologize all the way down. You will have to sift through mountains of garbage. But I'm telling you, there ain't just one needle in there. The big old fat fucking golden spike that lays through the center of all my shit, I'm telling you, will unlock the key. I'm not saying even necessarily that I have the key, but it's like I have the key that unlocks the door, that opens the door that the key's in. You know? It's up here. It's in here. I've still yet to open up the door, behind the door, behind the door, above the door, above the door, but then there. Okay. It's in the sauce, but it's a thick, big, fat, fucking heavy sauce, and yes, it's a needle in a haystack. So I apologize for the thickness of it, but this is the only way I knew how to do it. Because I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm being guided through this forest. I could have got there quicker had I never said anything. But had I never said anything, I couldn't have rewatched what I made and reminded myself of certain things. Also, not knowing exactly what tomorrow brings for me, or still possessing a certain amount of fear. It's like Chester Copperpot, right? Chester Copperpot in the Goonies died, right? But yet he was someone very old and compelled to start something out, to talk about it, to leave a path. So he made things in words. He was in the newspaper. People knew about him, right? And then the Goonies, the little kids, they found him. But what happened when they found him? Little Mikey said, he was a professional. He knew what he was doing. And we've gotten this far and we're still alive, and here's his dead body, right? So, if I'm not Mikey, I am Chester Copperpot. Will I perish on this path? Probably. But it's important. Was Chester Copperpot didn't get to where he was going, but you can think of it as he was led by reason, or he was led by God, such that when the time came, his death, his dead body, the way in which he scared little Mikey and all the Goonie friends, gave them strength. It gave the Goonies strength because it gave Mikey strength, because Mikey had the faith. It scared everybody, but Mikey saw the silver lining and said, hey, we've made it this far, we're keeping going. So that's how this symbolic adventure feels to me. It feels to me the way I feel when I feel myself as one of the Goonies when I watch the Goonies. Man, I've already went on so long and I still got so much to say. Oh boy. Deep breath. So, what was the big thing today? This all relates to things I've talked about before. And we must remember that this is a code that travels through time. There are several different paradigms, frameworks, analogies, hypotheses that can explain how this happens. Time travel, people talk about it all the time. So it's not like I'm some kind of fucking weirdo. The thing about time travel is that you can't change the past. Because if time travel exists in the future, it has always existed. Never mind if it existed in the past. Once a moment in time is sewn down, it's sewn down. Some things in the past haven't happened yet. Because the free will that dictates that particular future hasn't happened yet. Even though, okay, so if this is now, and this is the past, and this is the future, this is now. This is something that has happened. This is something that has happened. Similarly, this is something that is definitely going to happen. This is something that is definitely going to happen. In between there, it's kind of like time explodes from the middle. I'm the alpha and the omega, I'm the beginning and the end, which has to do with like causality of the prime mover, but it also has to do with teleology, the pull, the end that we're being pulled toward. But you can't have a beginning and end without a middle. And the middle is just as such. Similarly with like a string, where you have the full string and you pluck it and it's a note. And if you put your finger down in the middle of that string, pluck either side, it's the same note, just at a higher level, right? There are many ways to pluck up that string. David B. Doty, he made the, 14 tone, there's just intonation, 14 tone just intonation. Listen to some of that music. It's like the only dude in the world who ever fucking made it on record that you can find, that I can find. It sounds fucking beautiful. He cut it up into 14 instead of 12, never mind the Shruti, which is 22. But how could you dice up that 22 into the 14 too? There are infinite ways to dissect that string. So there's the idea of time travel is one of the ways that this message is transmitted, because someone's here today, they see what happens today, and they go back to a certain date. Like if you can travel backward or forward in time from a certain day, the possibility exists, and I think this is the case, that you can only, like you can go back 200 years, or maybe you can go back 200 years in a day, but from this day you can't go back 200 years in 2 days. Or you can go back 202 years in 5 days. You know, like from certain places in time, you can time travel, but only to certain dates, right? Because it's just the way the different waves correspond to each other. Which is why there's tones and nodes, the nahua and the tonal, the noggle and the tone, the node and the tone, right? Our free will denotes or detonates those places where nodes become. The more in line our free will is with true ethics, morality, ration, reason, and emotionalism and feeling as it ties to thought, the better it's going to be throughout time, each way. So there's that. The other idea is the whole I'll leave it, but the luminous egg, tachyon thought patterns, shooting thoughts through time, which is different, a little different. Also, there's the concept of the second attention, the second body as an apparition that can appear elsewhere and looks the same but isn't. But if nothing else, tachyon thoughts through time. And then there's the whole idea between forever and eternal. Eternal can touch anywhere, but if the quote-unquote God of gods is the eternal God, it's also very deeply engaged with the butterfly effect. And if a butterfly flapping its wings in New York can cause a tornado in Tokyo, then what happens when God answers your prayer for a car? What happens when God answers your prayer for this or that or whatever? God's always GPS rerouting, or the eternity, the infinite consciousness in eternity that allows free will, is constantly GPS rerouting everything because of the mistakes we make, because our free will is not yet perfected. Except for those of us where our free will has been perfected. But even they're not free, because then they're engaged in that eternal struggle to get the rest of us to marry our free will with the correct choice. But we have to choose, because that's how the God of gods that we all came from comes to know itself. God must estrange itself from itself in order to know itself, because it is so hypersaturated with everything and everyone that it requires temporality to know itself. But it can't complete, it's not a choice. Actually, the God in time cannot make the choice of our free will. So it's not necessarily God that bestows free will upon us, except God makes the choice to exist. And that bestows free will upon us. God's choice that God exists is what bestows free will upon us, because that's what allows nothing where everything is in potential to become something where everything behaves in kinetics, so to speak. Half of it must be a certain way. The other half is our choice. The end result is the same harmonically, but it matters if we go like this, back, like this, back, or like this, completion, back, like this, completion, back, like this, completion, back. It's going to be the same shape. It's just a matter of whether it dissolves at the hemisphere or if it completes and how big it is. And that is just an analogy. That's just a metaphor. That's a poetic way of saying it. God, I'm not even to like the first sentence of what I wanted to get to. Well, that's how I am. Okay, 29 minutes in. Alright. Got water boiling. I gotta turn it off because it's getting steamy in here. So, let's see. Where are we going? We're going to Raphael. Yeah, that's right. We're going to Raphael again. But we're going to tie together. I'm gonna tie some things together and it's gonna be good. Got the train slamming in the background. Underground Railroad, above ground. All right. I'm gonna try to slam through this. So I got a half hour. Typically on my memory. Typically on my memory, I don't have more than an hour. So let's see. I'll try to. Whew, am I gonna be able to do this? Well, we'll get. Oh no. I might be fucked. Yep. Okay, we'll have to come back. Okay. I'm back. Now, I've showed this before. The Raphael School of Athens painting. So I've went over a lot of stuff with that. And I noticed this before, but I never mentioned it. How this image here, when you cross over, Plato and Aristotle, because this image begs to be mirrored, because even mirrored and overlapped, you know, and I've talked about this image, how it resembles the Lincoln Monument. At least kind of, and certainly from afar, and I only noticed it in a thumbnail when I was like, huh, that looks like the Lincoln Monument. And then when I looked at the Lincoln Monument on the back of the $5 bill, I noticed how, huh, that kind of looks like the Raphael painting of the Disputation of the Sacrament, of the cloud beneath Jesus that I say looks like, quote unquote, Blackbeard, quote unquote, the Jolly Roger, quote unquote, One-Eyed Willie, quote unquote, Black Aesop. Where this little triangle area here would be the head of the monument. What are the eyebrows of this skull-like face would be the arms of the Lincoln Monument, where the nose would be the body, and where this lower mouth region would be the legs. The Lincoln Monument, which was built after the, I don't know, whatever that temple is on the Acropolis, I think it's on the Acropolis at Greece, that represents stylistically the temple to Athena of Athens, and this is the painting called the School of Athens, even though the only thing that looks like the School of Athens in this painting is when you mirror it. The symbolic image represents Lincoln in the temple to Athena, essentially. And the rest of this does not look like the temple to Athena, but it begs to be mirrored. But anyway, I had noticed, and the two central images that we are told on the surface are the central images are Aristotle and Plato, even though the real central images are Diogenes and Heraclitus. But I noticed how this head, and I can't remember if I mentioned it before, but it looks like a tom turkey. It looks like one of those blue and red head turkeys. A bit. Not exactly, but like that was the first thing I thought when I looked at this. I was like, where the two heads are the eyes. Got the dome of the turkey. You got this area, which is a little bit like a beak. This is a little different because of the mirroring, but symbolism, quote unquote, hidden in such a way can't necessarily always be perfect. I did mention before how this face, if you can notice that face, how that face looks a bit like the Hieronymus Bosch skull. Actually, I have that here, so we'll just take a quick look at that, a little slight detour. Hold on just a sec, it's going to get black for just a sec. Yeah, there's something about the way when we cross over that image, it very much reminds me of this skull. This is a piece torn off because this was an old poster I had rolled up. I cut this piece out to put on one of my other paintings. Also notice how down at the south, at the bottom, a black person with an apple on his head, or her head. Bosch, like the Bosch drill, Garden of Earthly Delights. So we're talking about north and south because Africa is down here. Northern Africa. But yeah, that skull-like face reminds me of this skull-like face, which mirrored over here is this skull-like face. And then there's this skull-like face. And then there's this skull-like face in the center, turkey tongue. Now, of course, in the original painting, like I said before, tied back to like Da Vinci Code conspiracy type stuff. If we look at the original image, we have Raphael standing right at the edge of the column, right beside Zoroaster. I mean, they are as hidden and as inconspicuous as can be. But there are only 3 people, so far as I've identified. Well, wait, no, maybe 4. But there's Raphael over here who's looking at you, the viewer. And there's this image of the white-robed woman over here looking at you. Could symbolize a virgin, so on and so forth. I've said, what if that is Raphael? Just like they've said, what if the Mona Lisa is Da Vinci? But no one ever talks about this. So that's all caught up in the whole deal too. There's a lot going on here. Yeah, I've talked about all this stuff, so I'm not going to go over what I've gone over, but there's a lot there. So if you're intrigued so far, I'd encourage you to search through some of my old things. But even here, even before we mirror the image, that arch with the 2 heads still looks very Turkey-ish. And where was Zoroaster from? Turkey. Where did the wild carrot, which is the keystone of this dome, the key, the legend, that which tells you what you're looking at, that's the keystone. So what are you looking at? You're looking at the fucking wild carrot, which came from Turkey, or supposedly, that's the best that we can do. Supposedly, if you look it up, they say the carrot came from Turkey. That's the second year wild carrot, which the flower doesn't come up till the second year after it dies. Zoroaster, like Christ, died and resurrected, just like Pythagoras, just like Krishna from the east, just like the Phoenicians from the east, all tied up with the Canaanites, which if you truncate the right side of the N of Canaanites, you get Karaites, carrots, all tied up with the Egyptians. Never mind the Sphinx and George Washington. George Washington, maybe I'll get to that this time, but George Washington has the haircut of the Sphinx. He's the only historical figure who has that most famous haircut of the Sphinx. Much was tied in here, except if you ever look at the old Dali paintings, and I talked about Dali's Abraham Lincoln Gala painting before, but he made it explicit that you could make faces and architecture look the same. Notice, and I haven't looked into this yet, but notice how the bottom half of this sculpture looks like a face. I guarantee that wasn't an accident, because I guarantee Raphael wasn't Raphael. I guarantee Raphael's been around for a long, long, long time. But yeah, and I've also talked about before how, you know, like the blue robe, I don't know if it's the Mediterranean Sea or whatever, but the blue robe of Diogenes represents, like, it fits perfectly on a map with the sea. I think the Mediterranean, and like this would be like Italy, this would be like Greece. This over here would be, you know, Persia, Turkey, Iran, Persia essentially. Where Zoroaster came from, Turkey. Who Benjamin Franklin said should have been the emblem instead of the eagle, the turkey. This area looks like a turkey, especially when flipped back and forth. Now where? Yeah, right here. See if we can get there. I took a bunch of pictures, but maybe I can just, well, I'll go to the pictures. My files. There we go. Images. Images. Turkey. And I've already talked before about the blue, about the Smurfs, about the this, about the that. Now if you mirror this image, what do you get? You don't even need to do it. You can just think it. And that's what Renaissance masters, you know, because you talk about using like half-silvered mirrors or mirrored and upside down. That's how Da Vinci wrote. You know, he'd write upside down in a mirror, with his own code of his own language that he created, which looks a heck of a lot like the language that's in J.R.R. Tolkien that's carved on the Lord of the Rings. But anyway, if you mirror this, what do you get? You get a heart. Also, what do you have here? A turkey tom looks like an elephant. The elephant is Ganesh. Right, I think Ganesh in India, which isn't far removed from the Sanskrit word for carrot, which is like Gurjanim, but it has several of the same letters.
Saint Thomas, who is associated with the rainbow, the patron saint of lost causes, the old man who went to India. And Thomas was Judas Thomas, and I've talked about this before. There's Judas Thomas, and there's Judas Iscariot. And I've talked about this before, that was Judas the bad guy, because Judas is Judah, and Judas is the Jews, and Jesus was a Jew. Now, the Jewish word for fish, and Jesus is associated with fish, and the Pisces and the Piscean age, and the Visic of Pisces, and he turned a few fish into 1,000 fish or whatever. But of course, fish are shaped like a seed. So, one squash, for instance, which if you take a summer squash and slice it down the middle and put it in the microwave, and then put it, in for a few minutes and then press it, and when it opens up the way a fish does when you cut it open. And there's all those seeds which you plant and can feed multitudes with. But anyway, and of course fish also starts with phi. But phi isn't just the phi that we know of the 1 plus root, plus or minus 1, plus or minus root, plus or minus 5 over 2. It also has to do with the plus or minus 1, plus or minus root, plus or minus 3 over 2. But, yeah, and that has to do with phi omega, which makes heart shapes on a graph, just like this turkey tom when you flip them. But, yeah, St. Tom. Okay, before I get to that, I'll just note Ganesh, the elephant in the room, the things people don't talk about, Harriet Tubman, the Harriet Tubman garb, the Smurf, the gnome. Talked about all that before. Beautiful creature. Plus the fan from the east. The fan of the geisha. White face, red eyes, wild carrot. The elephant. The elephant who has the big nose and the open mouth is typically the symbol of Ganesh, just like this wild turkey, which also has the blue and the red, which is tied in with the blue and the red we see here between Socrates or between Plato and Aristotle, the two these days famous philosophers of this age, even though it might not be them who it's really all about. Also, the blue and red of the fire of the Borgo, where I've said before, this with the red hat and the blue garb, just like Harriet Tubman in the Harriet Tubman movie, just like the gnomes, appears to be a dark man saving a dark child from a white woman. Just like Moses, which was Harriet Tubman's nickname, behind a bunch of columns, a building somewhat symbolizing the Lincoln Monument, and how this image represents the North and the South, because this all represents Northern Europe, or Southern Europe, Mediterranean, and so on. And what I say are the two key figures, and even Aristotle is placing his hand downward to focus you on Diogenes and Heraclitus, which this person was Michelangelo. Supposedly, I believe this figure as Heraclitus was modeled after the way Michelangelo actually looked. So that's important. But and they're looking down. He is looking toward the what are they called? What are they called? Those northern Africans. But when you flip the image, he's looking off toward Egypt. He's making a little triangle here with his foot, like a pyramid. This shape, once it's imaged, makes a little pyramid nose. Except he believed in fire, and fire is not the pyramid. Fire is the tetrahedron. I've gone into all that before, so they have to look at my old shit. And Diogenes has put down his lamp. Why? Because he has found a man of truth. Who has he found? He's found Aesop from Ethiopia and Ethiopian math, the binary system, the way that they do multiplication and division, but not just the binary system. It works with any base system the way they do math. Okay. And that's the base, that's the foundation. So we might as well think of that area somewhere between Ethiopia and Turkey. The Fertile Crescent, right? The Canaanites, the Phoenicians, Pythagoras. What is pith? Pith is what's found in a stalk or a stocking. Which stalk? The stalk of the wild carrot, which is salty, a pillar of salt. Okay, where was I getting? Where was I getting? Where was I getting? Where was I getting? Might as well just say it now, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebird. We think of a little bluebird, but this is a bluebird. If bluebirds fly over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, why and oh why can't I? Now bluebirds don't look like a rainbow, but well, this bluebird looks like a rainbow. And Twitter is the symbol of a bluebird. It used to have 140 characters, and if we just line that up straight with the English language, 1A, 4D, O, O, 0 can be an O, or it can be nothing, but it can be an O. It's typically an O. So 140 is ado. So now we know much ado about nothing. But now it's 280. BHO. Well, if you were to pronounce it in English, it would mostly be bow. A bow, like a rainbow. But then it used to be 140 characters, so that's Shakespeare. And we know pretty much the most famous Shakespeare quote is to be or not to be. Or it's tied for first place, to be or not to be. Well, we're going to go with two B's. So it could be a bow, or it could be a bee, ho. How do you be a hoe? You dig, you sow. A hoe. What's a hoe? A hoe's on a farm. Never mind the rest of it. Hoe's on a farm. So you got a rainbow, and you got a farm. Dorothy. Ruby slippers. I've been over that with the wild carrot last video or so. Tom, who's associated, and a Tom is associated with St. Thomas. His symbol is the rainbow, as is, gay pride, all that kind of thing. Though gay can also mean happy. And the best part of the whole gay thing is, I was talking about with the dude at work today, like gay gay pride parades. Awesome. Fun, dancing, just fun. Great. That's awesome, you know? I want to have fun. Can't we have straight pride parades that aren't just like dipshit ass motherfucking like mean you're gonna go to hell shit and like, and I've said it before too that gay actually isn't the rainbow. Gay pride, LGBT, I don't know the letters, but it's not the rainbow. That gay men are the infrared and that lesbian women are the ultraviolet. So everybody is the rainbow, and brotherly and sisterly love, quote unquote, Philadelphia, expands the rainbow. But yeah, Saint Thomas, lost causes, patron saint of lost causes and second chances. But the causes that were lost are not lost to remain lost. It's not some sort of tragic romanticism over tragedy. It's supposed to be lost causes found for the second chance to succeed. And same thing with, because that's Judas Thomas, and then there's Judas Iscariot. Is carrot, is chariot, been over all that. Thanksgiving, the turkey, the biggest single mass murder at one time of any species on the planet. The turkey that has to do with Indians, and we call Native Americans, indigenous peoples, Indians, and we call people from India Indians, though there were, no, not probably, there were definitely Indians from India here disguised as Indians. Just like the Olmecs, there were Africans here, there were Indians here, there was a lot of shit going on here. Because Pangea just didn't unfold the way the storybooks tell us it unfolded. It unfolded the other way as well. Because if you take those puzzle pieces and reach them back the other way, lo and behold, they also fit. So there's a lot more to the story. But the big thing about today is tying in the whole Tom, Uncle Tom, the Turkey Tom, Ben Franklin, who made some of the biggest inventions ever in the world and didn't seek to profit off of them, except for in so much as to have enough of a livelihood to survive, and put his life on the line over and over and over and over and over and over again for the betterment of humanity. Benjamin Franklin, who created the first astrological farmer's almanac, and Arya Bhatt, the statue in India of an astrologer from thousands of years ago who looks like Benjamin Franklin, right? Shit goes back, and it goes back at least as far as to Zoroaster from Turkey, the wild carrot from Turkey. Right here, on the pillar that holds the arch, you have the artist of the painting standing next to Zoroaster, who was a Christ figure, born of a virgin, resurrected, the whole deal. The key at the keystone isn't even disguised. That's the wild carrot flower. The second year, after it dies, the first year goes through the winter, the 3 months of the winter, then resurrects in its second year as a biennial or whatever. That person's looking at us, that person's looking at us, that person's looking at us. the baby, the seed. Plant the seed. It grows. She represents the virgin. Green. First year carrot. The carrot seed. The first year carrot. The bloomed resurrected Zoroaster. Boing! The only three faces in a straight line looking at us. And then, once resurrected, what's that mean? It means it becomes the wild carrot, alive, and then it dies and becomes just a little seed, planted, and then it grows. But then notice this ratio. Is that a phi or is that a root 3 ratio? We'll have to look more into that. So this is the ratio on the line concerned in a diameter in a circle. That's good. I didn't recognize that before. I'd noticed those faces, but those are the only faces looking at you at this perspective. So where are they looking at? We're on the edge of the sphere. That's a motherfucking wild carrot, and that's the keystone. That's a turkey. And in this way, yeah, you don't even need to mirror it, because the beards, or whatever they call that, the trunk of the Ganesh elephant turkey is hanging down one side. The Tom, St. Thomas, Second Chances, Lost Causes, the rainbow. Diogenes, who lived in a barrel, just like a wild carrot. Heraclitus, Hare Krishna, Harry Carey. Suicide, seek death. Death to the flesh. Don't eat meat. And even this whole image, I've talked about mirroring it, but you don't even need to, because this image, if you fade it, already fits in to this image. The cloud he's sitting on. Black Aesop. Plotinus. Ethiopian mathematics. Quote unquote aplatonic forms. The wild carrot, the white flower with the red dot in the middle of the palms, the palm trees. What's it called? Palm Sunday? Palm Sunday? The week before Easter? Palm Sunday? Easter? And a palm tree, flat, looks like a tree. Tree, T-R-E. Tre, tres. In Spanish, Latin, is 3. Tree is 3. What's it all? But how do you pronounce it in Latin? Tre. What tree looks like a tray? Most trees don't look like a tray. What tree looks like a tree? A palm tree. But a palm tree ain't the size of a palm. What palm tree is the size of a palm? A wild carrot. A plane. A white dot. A white plane with a red dot in the middle. A dot. A spot. A period. A period. I cracked the motherfucking code. And I'm not trying to say it like I did it. I'm trying to say it like there's an agenda that goes back thousands of years by people who are still alive, who have been alive. You gotta be funny about it sometimes, otherwise you're gonna fucking die. Because it's so overwhelming. But these dudes have been around and there's an agenda, and the agenda is stop eating meat. I'm not saying that's the entire agenda, but it's at least half of the agenda. Everything else is kind of like twiddling with stuff, you know? Our existence, our bodies and our existence, it's like a hybrid, not even a hybrid car, it's like a perpetual motion car. But let's say it's a hybrid car, except it's broken and we've built a steam engine in the back seat. So now what do we have? We don't have a hybrid car and we don't have a back seat. And we have an inefficient steam engine built in the back seat of our hybrid hamster wheel. And we keep trying to fix the steam engine that's breaking down in the back seat of our hamster wheel. But there's a lot we don't need to fix. What we need to do and what we need to choose. I said before we can't legislate this, but it will be legislated someday. But for now, it can't be legislated. So for now, what needs to happen is people need to just choose. And not on a health or an ethical basis, not on this reason horseshit that they call reason that's not reason. Though it employs reason, but other things do as well. Stop eating meat. Stop eating vertebrates. Stop it. Stop. That is the message they've sown into time. I've gone over it, and I'm just going to keep finding better and better and better and better and better ways to distill this truth. Because we'll never get there if we don't do this. We need to do this. But yeah, the big discovery today, and I already knew it before, but yeah, the blue and the red of the tom. The tom, the turkey, Zoroaster, Raphael, Vatican, Pope, Julius II. I always call him Nicholas. I'm going to have to figure out what I'm screwing up there. Actually, I already have some ideas on that, but because in that Borgo painting, not far from the Moses figure and the darker skinned people figures, is, I can't remember who it is, someone saving his father or whatever, who's got the Santa Claus hat on, who also kind of looks like Pope Julius, who I say from other paintings, I can't remember if Raphael made it or not, but other paintings of Pope Julius where he looks more like an Eastern master, as does this Jesus figure. I mean, first of all, he's way pale. None of these dudes look fucking Italian to me, and they're in Italy. Never mind not looking Middle Eastern, right? But Jesus does look hermaphroditic. The elephant in the room, which I don't know if I even got to with the whole thing with the turkey. So you get that profile turkey image who also looks like a snake. He's got the scales like the snake. Looks like a snake. Looks like a king cobra. Looks like the headdress of an Egyptian. How far back does this code go? Right? So that's the good side of reason. Figuring out the symbology. Using reason, using not just like the logos of math and perfect geometry, but that's important, but also using the other side of reason, the mythos, not the bad mythos, the good mythos, not just the drunken Dionysianism, but the story, the Aesopianism. To break this shit down, to figure out that story that has moved through time with those who have come through time and move through fucking time. And why me? I don't know. Maybe it's not me. Maybe I'm only breaking the code enough to help along someone who's really gonna break it. because it needs to break. It's like a big, huge, fucking multi-thousand-year wave, and it needs to break. But like a huge wave can break in a smooth way, right? Even a small wave can break very violently. And even a large wave can break smooth if everything's shaped right. And that's the goal. This fucking